Well, the media got completely flummoxed, almost ambushed, I would say, by what happened in the Oval Office yesterday. They weren't expecting it, they weren't planning for it. And so they immediately did what the media always does: they lie. They lied and at the same time tried to accuse Donald Trump of lying. Now, here are the indisputable facts. There are people being murdered in South Africa. A lot of people. It's not a safe place. And most specifically, there are people who are being targeted solely because of the color of their skin. These are white farmers who are now seeking and receiving asylum in this country. They have refugee status because they are being persecuted in their home country due to their race. President Trump, to the face of the president of South Africa, called this genocide what it was, called it out. And so you would think the American media, having learned so many lessons through history, going all the way back to the Soviet Union mass murders under communism, the Third Reich, of course, the killing fields of Cambodia, the death camps in Mao's China, you would think at this point, even the Rwandan genocides, you would think at this point, the American media would recognize a genocide when they see it. They would recognize the good guys and the bad guys. You would think wrong. Because in that room yesterday, when you saw the president of South Africa who was allowing this to happen in his country, and you saw President Donald Trump sitting next to him, the American media saw the bad guy, and he was the orange man. Once again, they just can't quit it. They just can't quit it. Look at ABC News. ABC News says President Trump and South African President, unpronounceable, engaged in a back and forth at the White House over Trump's unfounded claims of genocide against white South African farmers. By the way, ABC News has changed this headline. This is the revised one. I saw the original one. Originally, it said Trump's false claims of genocide. So their original instinct was to just say that Trump was lying. It's false. There is no doubt. Now they just changed it to unfounded. Oh, okay, there may be a genocide, but, you know, these are unfounded claims. Are they? Hold on. Didn't we see Trump do something at this meeting? Unfounded claims?
What would you like, President?
Don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death.
I don't know. Does that seem unfounded to you? That seems pretty founded, ABC News. Well, he didn't provide any evidence. He literally had a stack of articles. He literally showed a video of elected officials and government officials calling for the murder of white farmers. He literally showed white cross after white cross after white cross in a rural area, marking the deaths and graves of these white farmers. And ABC News decides that these are unfounded claims of genocide. My question to ABC News is, how do you define genocide? Is there a number? Do we have to hit a certain mark? What is the word you would use now? You agree that there were deaths of white South African farmers, right? So is it just not enough for you to care about? Does it have to reach a certain number? That's ABC News. CNN, President Trump pushed unsubstantiated claims of white genocide in South Africa during tense White House meeting with the nation's president. NBC News, breaking intense meeting with South African President unpronounceable. President Trump plays videos promoting baseless claims of white genocide in the country. It's almost like these news networks all use the exact same language and the exact same tactics when reporting the news to you. Isn't it almost like that? Isn't it weird? Isn't it boring? Isn't it embarrassing that they're all, do they compare notes? Do they like text each other? Hey, what are you wearing tomorrow? I'm wearing green. Let's all wear green. Let's say unfounded. Let's say baseless. Let's put genocide in quotes. Let's say the meeting was tense. God, it's bad. Honestly, I wish we had a better media. We deserve a better media. If you think I'm overstating the case, if you think I'm exaggerating, if you think I'm being hyperbolic, well, we thank our buddy Western Lensman on X for putting together a quick little montage. This ain't the Brady Bunch. No, This is the bogus bunch. Look at your media.
For the dramatic scene in the Oval Office today, the tense confrontation, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Up next, another Oval Office meltdown. President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
President Trump is being accused of conducting something of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
To be with you, I'm Katie Tur. President Trump orchestrated another Oval Office ambush today.
Today, Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader.
To Zelensky territory, where essentially he was a bit ambushed inside the Oval Office.
Felt like an ambush in there, kind of like the President Zelensky meeting in the Oval Office.
This was an ambush. It was orchestrated.
Cyril Ramaphosa brought his best diplomatic self to this meeting, but nothing could have prepared him for this multimedia ambush.
What started as, to some degree, an ambush.
Well, Katie, I mean, it was an ambush.
Ambushed.
An ambush.
Ambushing.
Ambushed inside the Oval Office.
Western Lensman is awesome. I subscribe to his channel, and so should you. That's just pathetic. It's pathetic, and it's embarrassing, and they lack any sense of creativity, intellectual curiosity. None of them are unique in any way whatsoever. They don't talk the same way. They use the same cadences. They use the same language. No wonder they're dying. As my friend and mentor who brought me into this business, Andrew Breitbart, said famously, the American people don't hate the media because they're biased. They hate them because they suck. There's Andrew. Get his book. But it's not just the television news. It's not just the broadcast news. It's not just the cable news. Take a look at the print media. They got the memo too. Daily News, Trump ambushes South Africa. Standard, Trump ambushes South African president. CNN, Trump ambushes South Africa's president. The Guardian, Trump ambushes South African president. This is embarrassing. Ambush, 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 ambush. They get paid for that crap. And by the way, the media just saw what you saw. The media saw what I saw. The media saw what we all saw, which is an extraordinary story of humanitarian suffering and persecution at the hands of the South African government, with slaughters, genocide proportions of people being murdered because of racial bigotry. And again, you'll hear from some of the apologists who say, well, you know, apartheid was apartheid was bad. What was that, 30, 40 years ago? These people didn't commit apartheid. These people are their grandchildren. Is that what we're doing? Are we visiting the sins of the father against the child? And by the way, you can't even prove that their grandparents benefited from apartheid or in any way were part and parcel to the apartheid government. As if that was a viable rationale for mass murder and genocide, which it's not. So even their apologist rationalization of the violence is misguided and wrong. But even if you buy it, it's complete. But set all of that aside for a second. If you're a member of the mainstream broadcast or cable news, as you just saw in the video clip, or if you belong to NPR and Yahoo News and the New York Times and all of these other legacy corporate brands that you see before you right now, the story coming out of yesterday is not the slaughter of innocents in South Africa. The story is mean old Donald Trump ambushing President Unpronounceable. Really, what did he ambush him about, guys? And maybe spend a little time researching that story. Because I'm telling you, years from now, they're all going to be saying, oh my gosh, it turns out there was a genocide in South Africa. Let's do a documentary about it and about how the world turned a blind eye to it and nobody paid attention. If only someone had said something. Someone is saying something. You just hate him. And so your stories continue to be about how much you hate him. Now, I told you some people in the media made apologies for this. They tried to excuse and rationalize this behavior. The behavior of elected officials and government officials screaming, kill the Boer. That means kill the white farmer. This is a rallying cry from, yes, of people who for generations were persecuted. And the rallying cry is murder our persecutors. It has now been decades since Nelson Mandela was freed. It's decades since Nelson Mandela became the president, decades since there was a new constitution, decades since apartheid was the rule of law in South Africa. And yet the rallying cry continues to be murder our oppressors, murder our oppressors' grandchildren is now the rallying cry. And this member in good standing of the media on CNN made excuses for it.
Larry, has been debate over that song, that anti-apartheid chant, right? And for people who don't have a historical context, it does potentially appear more literal. Talk to us about the debate that has happened inside of South Africa with the recognition of how it appears to people when they hear those words.
It is an inflammatory song, without a doubt. And many in South Africa, even Black South Africans, don't think it should be sung in a post-apartheid world, 30 years plus after apartheid. But there are many who grew up under those years of white minority rule who understand the historical context of this song, Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, that Julius Malema has made popular again. It sort of fell into disuse. It's not been that commonly sung after the end of apartheid in 1994, but it's brought it back again to reanimate the issue of the majority of land in South Africa still being owned by white farmers.
Yeah, it's interesting that when he said kill the Boer, he then translated it to kill the farmer. He left out an adjective. Not all farmers, you know, you don't need to be killed if you're just tilling the land and planting seeds and harvesting, as long as you're the skin color we approve of. It's a certain kind of farmer that needs to be killed. Wonder why he left that out there. But also the way Brianna asked the question here is so patronizing and condescending to anybody who hears this and rightfully, appropriately, morally objects to this despicable racial genocide. Listen to how Brianna asked the question again.
There has been debate over that song, that anti-apartheid chant, right? And for people who don't have a historical context.
Yeah, see, you just don't have the historical context, you idiot. Sure, they're calling for the murder of people because of the color of their skin, but you've got to understand the historical context. It's totally cool if you just educated yourself a little better. God, how do people watch this network anymore? But actually, CNN's performance yesterday and all of those other broadcasting cable outlets I showed you in the montage from Western Lensman and all of those print websites who all sang from the same page, they don't even get the award for being the worst possible fake news media outlet of the day. No, that award goes to NBC News, proud as a f***ing peacock. The 7-minute long video showing the grave sites and crosses and memorials for all of these dead farmers who were killed because of the color of their skin, and the chants of kill the white farmer, the songs, the dancing by elected officials and politicians and government officials, the terror that was shown in that 7-minute video in the Oval Office. As soon as that presentation was done, as soon as President Trump was done with the initial part of this discussion of the topic of the day, with the president of South Africa in the room, specifically about the genocide of these farmers and why the United States has opened up asylum status for refugees coming from that nation. The second the video was over, as Donald Trump took a breath, ready to move on to the next part of his presentation, Peter Alexander of NBC News, without being called on, screams a question. What was his question?
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about?
So you saw, by the way, and I just want to point out, President Trump was reaching over to grab that stack of paper. That stack of paper, as we've seen earlier, was the news report showing the murder of all of these poor victims of the racial genocide taking place in South Africa. He was still talking. He was still in the middle of making the case to the president of South Africa about the atrocities in his nation. Nobody was called on. Nobody was asked to present any questions. Instead, Peter Alexander decides to jump into the middle of the silence, interrupt the president, interrupt the presentation about genocide, and ask about the Qatari jet. What a complete and total embarrassment. And by the way, Trump, I want to start again from the question. I'll let it run because Trump absolutely verbally castrates this man as he deserves. As he deserves.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know, you to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing, they also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead. Go ahead, talk about that. His name is Peter something. He's a terrible reporter. Quiet. Let's go.
Man, I do like the lean in. Quiet. Peter Alexander, though, did not remain quiet. He decided, okay, fine. You want a question about the situation in Africa, South Africa? Okay, I've got a question. Why is it appropriate? This is the question. Why is it appropriate to allow white South Africaners in here instead of other people from other countries? Because they're trying to paint Trump as a racist. He only wants to let white people in.
Can you explain to Americans why it's appropriate to welcome white Afrikaners here when other refugees like Afghans, Venezuelans, Haitians have all had their protected status revoked?
Well, this is a group, NBC, that is truly fake news. They ask a lot of questions in a very pointed way. They're not questions, they're statements. We've had tremendous complaints about Africa, about other countries too, from people. They say there's a lot of bad things going on in Africa, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. When you say we don't take others, all you have to do is take a look at the southern border. We let 21 million people come through our border, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. They came from all over the world. In many cases, they're criminals. They come from prisons. They come from mental institutions. They come from street gangs. They're drug dealers. So don't say that we didn't take them. We're trying to get them out as fast as we can.
That's right. To stand up there and to accuse the United States of not allowing people in. It's like, well, now you're not. Yeah, now we're not because our gates have been flooded for 4 years of completely unaccountable invasion of people from every country on the planet. Now, suddenly, we're actually showing some judicious decision-making power in who gets into this country and whether they have a legitimate asylum claim, and no one can deny these people don't have a legitimate asylum claim. And NBC News, in the person of Peter Alexander, demands an explanation to the American people. Honestly, you don't hate these shameless liars nearly enough.